the Suns would close out? I meant the Nuggets would close out.
Right.
Sorry. Let's start that over. There's
No
four
worries.
series. They're all going to Game 6,
Yes.
and I feel like Denver is probably not going to lose 2 in a row, but the other series I can't say I know who's going to win yet.
So let's start with Nuggets Suns, because it appears that Jokic is just figuratively undressing DeAndre Ayton to the point where Suns fans and everybody is just pointing to him as the issue, as if Paul's absence means nothing. But so I ask you, is that the ultimate difference maker here? Because Booker is lighting up the night and Durant is Durant, and yet the Nuggets can close things out tonight in Phoenix with this gentleman, with both series that could have wrapped up last night now heading to a Game 6 in Miami and in Los Angeles, and tonight's series trying to be wrapped up by the Nuggets and the Sixers. Both with the Sixers are at home, and the Suns are trying to stave off elimination tonight. What a perfect time to have Brian Windhorst of ESPN join us right here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Brian?
We have 4 Game 6s, Rich. Now, number one, that makes NBA media happy because, games mean dollars. And I got to tell you, I probably feel like the Suns have if I had to pick, I'd say, okay, I think the Suns will close out for sure, but I can't 100% tell you how these other series are. And I think after the end of the season, it'll be interesting to see whether the Suns look at what his market would be. He's not exactly making other teams want to pound the door down to get him. We know that he's going to get outplayed by Jokic. That's not a surprise. But what's been really frustrating is that he's getting out-hustled and out-physicaled. And so that's an issue for the Suns. Chris Paul is an issue. But the Nuggets have a better 1 through 8 roster. And one of the great things about the NBA playoffs, Rich, is sometimes we get to see stars go up against better rosters and we get these great series. And we're kind of getting a great fan issue. I don't know if it's the issue. I mean, if I was a Suns fan, I would actually be pretty excited about what I'm seeing from Durant and Booker. And I understand that this is not the best team they're going to have because they traded away all their depth to get Durant. And I would be like, man, this could be really good this next few years once they can add a few more players in free agency or do some trades or something. I know that that's not the way a fan thinks. That's the way somebody in my job thinks. I look at the long term. A fan is desperately going game to game. But I don't see the Suns, now that I've seen them, and I covered them in the first round, now that I've seen them for a month, that's not a championship roster. But, boy, do they have 2 championships. I expect Booker and Durant to have great games tonight and to have the 2 of them go up against it, and I expect that ultimately the Nuggets, the better team, to win. So, and obviously the Sixers tonight would have, without a doubt, as you might imagine, signed for a Game 6 closeout game in their favor at home. Certainly the way Embiid came into this series. So what is the biggest surprise in the fact for you that the Celtics are facing elimination tonight? Yeah, I mean, the Celtics are really, really good. I mean, I covered them 3 rounds last year, and I really thought they were going to win the title at one point. I mean, they're up there. And, Steph Curry happened. I really think this is a good team. They don't really – they have everything you need for a champion. They really do. But – they sometimes struggle with focus, and that has cost them games. Boy, do they lose a lot of home games, Rich. I have covered so many games at the TD Garden where the other team is very excited in the last 2 years, a lot. And I do think that the changes that Joe Mazzulla has made to the way the Celtics play has made them more vulnerable. I think it, on one end, and so Boston, whether they make their threes or not, better be ready for the MVP to bare his teeth tonight. That's what I'm expecting.
I've got Brian Windhorst of ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show. What do you know about Anthony Davis at present, right now?
I know 2 things. I know that the Lakers are hopeful that he avoided the word concussion, and I know that the Lakers are not even using the word concussion, trying to speak it out of existence. Because if he does have a concussion, he will almost certainly not be able to play Game 6. And I got to be honest with you, I think Game 7 would be a long shot. Because once you're in the protocol, you guys know this from the NFL, it's a similar line on the 3-point shot. they could very easily hit 23s tonight and bury the Sixers on their home court. In fact, the last 4 times they've lost a home game and then gone on the road in the playoffs over the last 2 years, they won, including 2 road elimination games last year. Teams don't win 2 road elimination games in a decade, much less the same season. So, but they are more vulnerable than they should be. And so now here's one thing I'm going to say. Joel Embiid took off his brace on that knee in Game 5, had 33 points, and I don't think really pushed it. I think he will know tonight, especially now that he knows that knee is stronger. It reacted well without the brace. I think Joel goes for it. I think Joel goes for the MVP moment tonight to carry the Sixers, for not have symptoms until the next day. So while there was good feelings from the Lakers last night and this morning that he didn't immediately show the symptoms and that he recovered quickly after the game, it's going to be a bit of a worrisome day for them. Because he's so important to them. And, this is one thing I've been trying to tell people on ESPN today. When you're in the concussion protocol, it's not about playing through an injury. It's not like, oh, man, my ankle is sore. Because I know people want to knock AD for not, being tough, which if you want to do that, you can. This is taken out of his hands. This is not in the coach's hands. It's not in AD's hands. The doctors will determine it, and they do tests at the beginning of the season to do certain bases. He'll be fine. But this is not like, just play on your sore head. So, I think the Lakers are hopeful, but I think we've got some more hours to go here.
Well, how does it work in the NBA? The NFL concussion program and the protocols. Many of us know it down to the letter because this is something that has the national spotlight on it for as long as it's been. But the NBA, not so much. Who is the one looking at Anthony Davis and determining whether he has suffered a concussion?
And those tests establish what the player are when everything's fine. And then they will run those players that they suspect of a concussion through those tests again. And if you don't meet those standards, you are going to potentially go into the concussion protocol. Once you are in, there is a series of things that you must do to clear playing, and some of those things require 24 hours in between them. Some of them are physical, some of them are, operational. Mm-hmm. And so even if you are NBA 7 days.
Wow.
So they got to take care of Anthony Davis. They got to protect Anthony Davis. They got to protect him. If he goes in the concussion protocol, and again, he is not in it now, and the hope is that he will avoid it. But if he goes in the concussion protocol, I think you probably are looking at no 6, no 7. And I'm sure that there is a lot of pressure about the concussion protocol going on, because you can imagine how sensitive this situation is, player health protection protocols versus obviously the reality that if he goes in, it's such a loss.
What a sequence of events, Brian, coming out of Game 5, right? I mean,
you might have to wait 24 hours to do the next step in the process. And they do that for a reason, because they're trying to protect the player. So I have seen a couple of times, the concussion protocol happened in the NBA in 2011. There's been a couple of times, I remember it happened with Paul George once, I remember it happened with George Hill once, where a player suffered a concussion, went into the protocol in the playoffs, missed one game, and then was able to return for a game sort of 3 days later. Mm-hmm. But I think the Suns Nuggets could go.
No AD abyss. What a major swing one would think from Game 5 to Game 6.
Yeah, but they could have AD.
No, I know that.
I think those of us in the media, and this is what I've been trying to say on television today, we have to acknowledge what the concussion protocol means, because I think AD, I don't want people to say, because frankly, you got Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal laughing last night, and I don't want people to think that this is about he won't play through a sore knee. It's not going to be in his hands. But at the same time, they didn't think he was in the protocol last night. He could,
because the Warriors, as we all know, Game 3 washout, Game 4 they were up, and then Lonnie Walker, the fourth, happened. Sure. What do you think a Game 6 hinges on? Let's assume Anthony Davis returns.
Yeah, so the Lakers watched last series and watched Steph Curry detonate the Sacramento Kings out of the playoffs. They watched him in Game 7 on the road closeout game, just like this is, drop 50. And they basically made the decision, we are not going to let Steph Curry beat us. We're not going to do it. So they have in various different ways with various different strategies, basically forced Steph to distribute the ball. Now, he has still had some great games. And last night, for example, he had, he was really able to get to the basket. I know they had 25 baskets in the 6 of 25 from three-point range the last 2 games. And they are really forcing the ball at his hands with double teams and stuff like that. And so when the Warriors have gotten wins, it's when they've gotten great support from their other players. Last night Andrew Wiggins had his best playoff game of the postseason, 25 points. That's huge for them. Draymond Green, 20 points last night. Draymond doesn't score. When Draymond scores 20, it's like another player scoring 30. He does everything else. He's been playing great in this postseason, but this scoring is huge. When they won Game 2, even the series 1-1, Clay went 8 of 11 on threes. Clay has not shot above one game where he shot 36%, but he hadn't shot the ball real well. But in that game, he shot it real well, and it made a huge difference. So the way that the Lakers are good enough defensively to do it. I mean, I could say, don't let Steph, get going, and then I don't have the players to do it. He could still do it. The Lakers have the players and the scheme to lock down Steph. And so it's really on those other guys. But those other guys, some of them are Hall of Famers. And they've been through this before. And they have a great, track record of delivering on the road under pressure, which they did twice in the last round. So it's absolutely still in play for both ways in this series.
Brian Windhorst here. Became the first Knicks point guard to play all 48 in a playoff game. Obviously, Quentin Grimes did it as well. They became the first duo since Walt Frazier and Jerry Lucas did it in 1972. What Brunson is doing, I'm a New Yorker. He is one of my favorite that I've ever seen playing for the New York Knicks. He is unbelievable. And what he did last night was back things up, and with actions, what he was saying with his words after getting beat twice in Miami. How do you see this playing out for Brunson and the Knicks? And your thoughts on that performance last night, Brian?
Yeah, man, what a terrific season. It says 8 next to their name.
Right.
When you watch them play and you see their talent level and their depth and the way they handle themselves, they're not an 8 seed. So I know that if the Heat get one more win in this series, this will be seen as an upset. This has been a terrific season for the Knicks. Jalen Brunson, one of the best, dollar-for-dollar free agent signings in recent NBA history. Josh Hart, one of the most impactful trade deadline moves we've seen in the last few years. The Knicks have really done a great job. I think it's unsustainable what they're asking them to do. And the issue is that Emmanuel clear off the bench, and so Tom Thibodeau, under elimination pressure, is just gripping very hard. It's a huge ask to play players this many minutes. It's not that they can't play 48, Rich. It's that they're not conditioned to play 48. They've spent 6 months conditioned to play a certain way, and so you're just really asking for trouble. I will say this. If you're looking for a reason for the Knicks to be able to do it, the Heat are highly reliant on the three-point shot. They have been shooting over their head for 3 weeks now. One of the reasons that Heat are an 8 seed is because they really had ineffective three-point shooting during the season. You could make the argument that they are due to return to the mean, and that they had a bad three-point shooting game last night. You could say the percentages dictate that the Heat should have another bad three-point shooting game, and maybe it's tomorrow night in Game 6. But I think with where the Heat are, I think they'll get one more win, especially with the demands.
Who will have the draft rights to Victor Wembanyama, and the draft lottery is next Tuesday. Walk me through the drama of that night, what you expect from soup to nuts. Give me your thoughts on what's going to happen to that draft lottery and the drama surrounding it Tuesday. It
is really a very unique situation in all of American sports because one player matters so much in the NBA. The difference it's just a simple, thing of the fact of the way basketball operates versus the other sports. So one player can change a team's fortunes. I don't know if Victor Wembanyama will impact immediately because he is still very physically immature and has to grow up. But I will tell you that this player is more talented than Joel Embiid or Giannis Antetokounmpo when they came in. Okay, and those guys, you probably looked at them and said, well, they're never going to make anything. Well, guess what? They're the best players in the NBA now. And